Serious, people who almost died, but lived because of a gut decision. What's your story? I went to my urologist with epididymitis. He found the smallest amount of detectable blood in my urine. On a whim, he sent me to have an IVP. They put dye in your blood and radiologist has a look. He saw a mass on my left kidney. 20 minutes later I knew I had cancer when I saw the blood supply to the mass. That was on Thursday. Tests Friday. Monday he took out my kidney with a grapefruit-sized stage 3 tumor. There was no margin. Many years later my wife told me the doctor told her that I had a 50/50 chance of living 6 months. That was 1992. Lucky me. When I was 14 my cousin and I found my uncle's gun stash in his closet. My cousin grabbed a pistol and pointed it at my head with his finger on the trigger. I quickly told him to stop and that's not funny. He glared at me and told me it's not loaded while he pointed it at the floor and pulled the trigger. Gun was loaded and blew a big hole in the floor. I think about this a lot. I brought it up once to my cousin and he started to cry. That experience cut us both deep. One time working at a grocery store at night, I had cart duty and had to collect all the carts from the parking lot and bring them into the store. It was dark out and I had my headphones in and I was looking at the ground and pushing a chain of carts when suddenly it got darker. I stopped for a split second to wonder how it could get darker when it was already night and bam. One of the huge 30+ feet high parking lot lights smashed onto the ground right in front of me, hit the carts, and missed me by 2 feet. The metal had rusted out, and it snapped at the base. If I hadn't stopped to wonder how it got darker I would definitely died. I was traveling in the Philippines in northern Luzon. That's the part always hit hard by typhoons. It was just the beginning of rainy season. I was in Baño and was planning to go up north to Sagada the next day, Saturday. The Lonely Planet writes about this route as the scariest road in the world. It's solid mountain on one side and deep on the other. There was a jeepney scheduled in the morning and one in the afternoon. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm not a morning person, and if there is a later option, I'm definitely taking this one. On a whim the night before I decided to leave earlier and take the 8 AM jeep. Super out of character for me, and I'm still not sure why I did it. A few days later, on another bus, I chatted with this nice lady and she asked me what places in the Philippines I've been to so far. And she says, OMG, have you heard about the jeepney accident on Saturday afternoon on the road from Baño to Sagada? So apparently the jeepney I planned to take came upon a mountain slide, lost control and went down the side of the mountain. 10 people died. No one survived. My mom. I was almost 15. I had put on a lot of water weight and she was worried about it. Finally I was in pain and she realized it was literally just water weight, so took me to the hospital. First I was like, oh yeah, it's just thyroid. Take this and follow up with your doctor. Mom waited a few hours but felt uncomfortable. So she drove me to another who told her if she hadn't gotten me in when she did, I would have died before the follow up. My kidneys had failed. In 1976, I was on vacation with my parents in Colorado, and we drive through Big Thompson Canyon. My mom, brother and I all wanted to stay at one of the little hotels within the canyon, but my dad said no, and we continued on our way home to Illinois. After we got home, we saw on the news that the canyon flooded, killing over 100 people. Had we stayed there, we would have probably been killed too. I was out late one night. My car had broken down in the middle of an interchange that was so deserted there was no one there for miles. I did what any other person would do and called a towing number, and when I finally got through it was almost 1 AM. I decided to go take a piss down at some bushes when suddenly I heard some bikes approaching the car. I wanted to head out immediately to stop them for help when my legs froze and I thought twice. From behind the bush I basically saw them try to ransack the car and apparently they were all armed. Thank goodness I remained still, because these guys meant business. They fired multiple shots into the windscreen and door. It was an old Toyota Hilux so there was nothing in there. They busted all 4 wheels with bullets before getting back on their bikes and zooming off. I believe they were all high AF, which was why they didn't bother to check around, or maybe they thought I just deserted that area. Long story short, I walked a bit further into an open field and sat on the thick branches of a tree where I could see approaching objects. The towing truck didn't get there until past 4 AM in the morning, and I can tell you all, that was the longest night of my life. I made it home in one piece. I'm not sure I would have died, but my gut kept me from being raped. Unfortunately, my friend didn't listen to me and suffered for it. I grew up in a small town who contracted a construction project to a company in Norway. At the local bar one night was a group of Norwegian men who were staying at a local hotel. My friend and I met them that night for the first time. We hung out with them for a few hours and they showered us with drinks all night. At closing time they invited us to continue the party at their hotel. I pulled my friend aside and told her we shouldn't go. We didn't really know them, and we were also outnumbered. She said it would be fun and no big deal. My gut told me no. I just didn't feel comfortable, and so I refused. She called me a buzzkill and went anyway. The next day she called screaming at me. She spent the night being gang raped by these creeps, and in her devastation, she blamed me for not going with her. I tried to comfort her. I begged her to let me call the cops. She refused and said she never wanted to see me again. This was a couple decades ago, long before Me Too. I didn't know what to do. One of my biggest regrets is not calling the cops or banging down her door and trying to offer comfort. What I don't regret is not going with her. She can be mad at me, but I couldn't have saved her. We would have both ended up being raped. I moved away shortly after, and I've never seen her again. I wonder if there is anything I should do now. I just don't know what that would be. She was dead set on blaming me, but I tried to tell her it wasn't safe. I really did. Edit. I felt crazy guilty, but the decades have helped me come to terms that it wasn't my fault. I don't think I made that clear, but I felt I should add it, because it's the truth. There was a derecho a while back, kind of like a land hurricane, extremely high winds from the upper atmosphere, and it really didn't seem that bad at first. My ex even decided to take the dog out to play in the rain, but I just got this weird feeling and ended up insisting they come in and we all go to the basement. Who knows if we'd have died, but about 10 minutes later the wind really picked up and a good portion of our roof collapsed, followed shortly by nearly every tree within 300 feet of our house falling over. It took 4 to 5 months to get the house fixed. It's funny as my dog was always scared of the basement before then. Enough I had to carry him down during that storm, but after it became his safe place he'd go anytime there was a storm, or if I was out of the house. While fishing on a large lake in Canada, we were a little more than halfway across when the wind really started picking up, and a storm started rolling in. I had the choice to turn back, or head to an island with a bay. I decided to head for the bay, and just as we reached the calmer water we looked behind us, and the storm had gotten worse. We were in an aluminum boat, and if we had chosen to head back, 3 of us would have drowned, no doubt in my mind. We were already taking on water, and were completely drenched when we beached on the island. Once the storm abated, we made the journey back, and it still took 4 hours in high wind for a normally half-hour boat trip. Warming up in the truck was the best feeling in the world after that. Former professional motorcycle instructor here. I was riding a motorcycle at night on Highway 17 in Northern California, an infamously dangerous and twisty mountain pass with low visibility around most corners. Each direction of the highway has 2 lanes. For no particular reason, I decided to change lanes. Around the next corner, there was a washing machine in my original lane that was only visible after it would have been too late to avoid. At highway speeds, a collision like that would have sent me to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. That one still messes with my head. In high school at a graduation party, I had a really bad feeling about the guy me and my friends had gotten a ride there with. I'll call him H. I didn't know him well, but I saw him drinking and wasn't sure how much. He was supposed to be our ride home when the party was over. My one friend said she trusted him and not to worry. Well, I couldn't tell myself not to worry like she could. I said again to her that I didn't think it was safe to drive home with him. She insisted it was fine. Meanwhile, I had made a new friend that night. The first time I saw him, I felt like I should talk to him. Turns out he drove there alone and was staying sober to drive home. By 5 AM everyone was talking about grabbing an after party coffee and some snacks. People were piling into cars. I told my friend one last time I wouldn't drive with H. I got in the car with my new friend, knowing he was 100% sober. We pulled out onto the country road as it snaked through the trees. H came speeding out and passed us way too quickly. As we drove around the next corner we went through a cloud of dust and debris. H's car was wrapped around a telephone pole. 2 of the 4 passengers were dead, including the kid who got in the seat I would have been in. My friend was alive, but has permanent injuries to this day. Edit. I appreciate everyone listening to my story. Please don't drink and drive. Please help your friends realize how much damage it can cause. Had a weird feeling something was seriously wrong with me when I stood up and almost passed out at a big football game. We left the stadium and went to the ER. Turns out my appendix was ruptured and I needed surgery as soon as possible. I had been having stomach pain prior to this, but brushed it off as digestion problems. Good thing I went. Edit. We were watching the Cotton Bowl in Texas. My wife got me tickets for Christmas as the college we went was playing that year. We are from Michigan, so we had quite the drive. To get to Texas my appendix ruptured in the 3rd quarter and I ended up finishing the game in the hospital. We stayed a few extra days, but I had to get back to college. So my wife drove 17 hours straight, and we had to get out of the car every 45 minutes to an hour, so I could walk around to avoid blood clotting. She was my fiancée at the time and this trip really made us stronger, and I knew we would have a happy marriage. Thanks for all the well wishes.